You are supposed to follow orders. In occupied Europe, during the darkest years of the Second World War, this was not guidance, it was not suggestion. It was the absolute law that governed every breath you took, every movement you made, every word you dared to speak. You followed orders because the alternative was a bullet in the back of your head. You followed orders because your family's names were already written down, already filed, already waiting in a folder somewhere should you give them a reason. You followed orders because the soldiers watching you carried weapons, and you carried a wrench. The German railway system in occupied Poland operated with mechanical precision. Every train ran on schedule. Every junction was monitored. Every signal worker, every switchman, every station attendant was watched by guards who understood one simple truth. The railways were the arteries of the occupation. Control the railways, control everything. And if you worked on those railways, if you wore the stained coveralls and carried the tools and walked the platforms under the eyes of Wehrmacht soldiers, you followed orders. Every single time. Without hesitation, without question. Because railway workers who made mistakes didn't make them twice. They disappeared. But in the autumn of 1943, at a junction station south of Krakow, one man broke that rule, and in breaking it, he saved 143 souls from certain death.
His name was Jan Kowalski, 34 years old, married, father of 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9. Born in a village you could walk across in 10 minutes, where everyone knew everyone, where the church bell marked the rhythm of life long before the war came. Jan had worked on the railways since he was 16. He knew the junction south of Krakow the way you know your own heartbeat. Every switch, every signal, every rail line and every maintenance protocol, and every sound that metal makes when something isn't quite right. Before the occupation, he had been proud of his work, the precision of it, the responsibility, making sure trains carrying passengers, carrying goods, carrying life itself, arrived where they were supposed to arrive. Then came September 1939. Then came the soldiers in field grey uniforms who took over the station master's office and turned the platform into a checkpoint. Then came the new schedules, the new cargo, the sealed trains that stank of human waste and fear even from 50 meters away. Jan stopped being proud. But he kept working, because not working meant execution, because his wife and daughters needed him to come home each night, because you survived occupation by becoming invisible, by following orders, by never giving them a reason to notice you. He learned to look at his feet when the transport trains came through. He learned to ignore the sounds from inside the cattle cars. He learned to pull the correct switch, set the correct signal, and send trains eastward toward destinations whose names he knew, but whose purpose he forced himself not to imagine. He learned to be a good worker under occupation, which meant learning to be complicit. The German efficiency officer who managed the junction was Oberst Friedrich Dietrich, 52 years old, career military logistics. A man who believed trains and schedules and mechanical systems were more trustworthy than people, and who ran the junction with the same cold precision he had once run supply lines in France. Dietrich kept a chart in his office. Every train, every minute, every deviation from schedule was investigated. Every signal worker's performance was tracked. Jan's record was perfect. 46 months of occupation. Not a single mistake. Dietrich had commended him twice, told him he was the kind of Pole who understood order, who understood his place. Jan had thanked him politely, had gone home, had washed his hands until they were raw. The resistance approached him in July 1943. A man named Piotr. childhood friend, now carrying messages, forging papers, part of an underground network that was trying to save whoever could be saved from the machinery of genocide. Pyotr didn't ask Jan to sabotage trains. He knew that was impossible, too obvious, too easily traced. He asked for information, schedules, transport rosters, advance warning of special shipments. Jan said no, not because he didn't want to help, because if he was caught, his daughters would become orphans, because his wife would be sent to the same camps, because you don't risk your family for abstract principles when soldiers are watching. Pyotr understood, said he understood, left. Jan thought that was the end of it. Then came October 17th, 1943.
The transport order arrives at 6:15 in the morning. You are in the signal tower when the wire-marked courier delivers it. Sealed envelope, red stamp, priority designation. Oberst Dietrich opens it at his desk, reads, nods. Transport 447, he says. 14 cattle cars. Arrival 1400 hours. Junction transfer to Eastern Line. Signal worker Kowalski will manage the switch. You nod. Of course, you always manage the Eastern Line transfers. This one is special, Dietrich continues. His voice is matter-of-fact, like he is discussing freight schedules. Political prisoners from Plaszow transferred to Auschwitz-Birkenau for processing. Security is increased. Guards will remain on platform throughout the stop. Your throat closes. Plaszow. You know that camp. You know what political prisoners means. You know what processing means. You know exactly where these people are going and what will happen when they arrive. Understood, Herr Oberst, you hear yourself say. The morning passes. You perform your duties. You check switches. You verify signals. You mark your logbook with careful, precise handwriting that shows no emotion, because handwriting can be analyzed, can be questioned, can be used as evidence of unreliability. At 11 o'clock, you see the guards arrive. 8 additional wire-marked soldiers. They position themselves along the platform. They check their weapons. At 13:30, you climb the ladder to the signal tower. From here, you can see the entire junction. 4 main lines, 7 secondary lines, 16 switch points. The Eastern Line runs straight toward Auschwitz, toward Auschwitz. It is the direct route, the shortest route. There is another line, the Northern Freight Route. It is longer. It curves through agricultural zones. It has not been used for transports, only for moving coal and timber and goods that don't scream. That line dead ends 40 kilometers north at an abandoned freight depot. No selection platform, no guards waiting, no infrastructure for processing. Just empty rails and forest. Your hands are shaking. You pull them into fists, force them still. The mathematics of the situation are simple. The Eastern Line switch is throw number 7, standard transfer procedure. You have pulled that switch 400 times, maybe 500. Muscle memory. The Northern Freight switch is throw number 12. Wrong line, wrong direction, obvious error. If you pull switch 12 instead of switch 7, the transport will roll 40 kilometers into nowhere, will buy hours before they realize the mistake, will create chaos in a system that depends on precision. It will also kill you. Dietrich tracks every switch, reviews every decision. A diversion this obvious, this blatant, this perfectly timed with a political prisoner transport, there will be no investigation. There will be no hearing. There will be a wall and a firing squad. And after you are dead, they will go to your house. You think of your daughters, 7 and 9 years old. They have a father who comes home every night, who reads them stories, who makes them laugh despite everything. If you pull switch 12, they will remember a father who was executed as a saboteur. They will carry that mark for the rest of their lives, however long the occupation allows them to live. The logical choice is clear. Pull switch 7. Send the transport east. Go home tonight. Keep your family safe. You have already survived 46 months of occupation by making the logical choice. At 13:55, you hear the train. The sound arrives before the sight. The low rumble of wheels on rails, growing louder. Then you see it, rounding the southern curve. 14 cattle cars. Wehrmacht guards visible on the roof of the locomotive. Machine gun mounted on the rear car. The train slows as it approaches the junction. You descend from the signal tower, walk to switch control position 7. The guards on the platform are watching. Dietrich is watching from his office window. Your hand rests on the lever for switch 7. The train is 300 meters away. 200 meters. Your daughter's faces are so clear in your mind you could reach out and touch them. 100 meters. You close your eyes and you walk to switch 12. The lever is cold under your palm. You pull. The mechanism engages with a heavy clunk that echoes across the platform. The switchblades move. The northern freight line aligns. 50 meters. A guard is already moving toward you. You can see his face. Confusion, then anger. The train passes the switch point. The wheels follow the northern line. Halt! The guard is running now. What have you done? You turn toward him. Your face shows perfect surprise, perfect confusion. You stare at the switch, at the train now rolling away on the wrong line. I pulled 7. I always pulled 7. That is 12. The guard reaches you, rifle pointed at your chest. You pulled 12. No, You look at the lever, at your hand. Let genuine horror cross your face. Gott in Himmel, I pulled the wrong. Dietrich is running from the office. His face is purple with rage. Stop that train, he screams. But the train is already 400 meters down the line, rolling at 30 kilometers per hour, gathering momentum. The signal system can't recall it. There is no radio communication. There is only rail and momentum and 40 kilometers of track that leads to nothing. Dietrich reaches you. For a moment you think he will simply shoot you himself. How? His voice is shaking. How did you make this mistake? You make your voice small, confused, terrified. I don't know, Herr Oberst. I reached for 7. I was certain. You have worked this junction for 4 years. Yes, Herr Oberst. I don't understand. I have never... He looks at you. His eyes are dissecting you, looking for the lie, looking for the saboteur. You let him see fear. You let him see a man who has just made a catastrophic error, who knows his life is forfeit. You do not let him see the other thing, the calculation, the choice. You are under arrest, Dietrich says finally. Guards, take him to the holding cell. Rough hands grab your arms. They drag you toward the station building. As they pull you away, you see Dietrich already issuing orders, sending men on motorcycles to race ahead, preparing a recall locomotive, organizing the response to mechanical failure. He thinks this is incompetence. He has no idea it is resistance. The holding cell is 8 feet by 6 feet, concrete floor, single barred window. They throw you inside at 14:15. You sit on the floor, back against the wall. 40 kilometers, at 30 kilometers per hour, 90 minutes of travel time before the train reaches the dead end. Then time to realize the error, time to organize, time to reverse. At least 4 hours, maybe 5. 4 hours is a lifetime. You close your eyes and you pray, not for yourself. You know what comes next.
You pray that those 4 hours are enough. The interrogation begins at 1600 hours. Dietrich sits across from you at a wooden table. Behind him, 2 Gestapo officers have arrived from Krakow. They say nothing, they just watch. Explain, Dietrich says. You repeat your story. You reached for switch 7. You are certain.
You have pulled that switch hundreds of times. You don't understand how this happened. Your record is perfect, Dietrich says. 46 months, not a single error. Yes, Herr Oberst. And today, during a classified political prisoner transport, you suddenly make this mistake. I cannot explain it, Herr Oberst. You let your voice break. I am so sorry, my family. Your family is already detained, one of the Gestapo officers says. His voice is flat. Your wife, your daughters, they are being questioned. The world stops. You knew this would happen. You knew. But knowing and hearing are different things. They know nothing, you say quickly. This was my error, mine alone. We will determine that. The interrogation continues. 3 hours, the same questions repeated, your answers consistent, confused, terrified, genuinely not understanding how your muscle memory could have failed. They are looking for conspiracy, for resistance contacts, for evidence of intentional sabotage. They find nothing, because there is nothing to find. No messages, no meetings, no advance planning. Just one man, one moment, one switch. At 1900 hours, Dietrich receives a report. The transport train has been recovered, reversed back along the freight line, transferred to the correct route, delayed by 6 hours, but en route. 143 prisoners, the report states, all accounted for. Dietrich looks at you. You are a fool, Kowalski, an incompetent fool. You nod. Accept the judgment. Yes, Herr Oberst. You will be shot in the morning. Your family will be sent to labor assignment. This is the consequence of failure. They return you to the cell. You sit in darkness, back against the wall. 6 hours. You bought them 6 hours. You don't know if it was enough, but you made the choice, and you would make it again. At 23:30 hours, the lights in the station go out. You hear confusion, shouts, the sound of vehicles arriving, then gunfire, close, inside the station compound. The cell door explodes inward. A man in dark clothes, face covered. He grabs your arm. Move, now. You stumble forward, into chaos. The station is burning. Guards are firing blindly into darkness. Return fire comes from the tree line. Someone pushes you into a vehicle. It accelerates before the door is closed. You are in a truck. 6 resistance fighters around you. Weapons. Blood on one man's jacket. Your family is safe, one of them says. We got them out 2 hours ago. You cannot speak. The train was attacked 40 kilometers north when it stopped to reverse. We hit them during the confusion. 96 escaped into the forest. We have guides taking them to safe houses. 96. Out of 143. 96 people who would have arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau tomorrow morning. The others, you ask. 47 still on the train. It is already at the transfer point. His voice is gentle. We could not save them all. You nod. Close your eyes. 47 souls you could not save. 96 you could. The mathematics of resistance are brutal, but they are better than the mathematics of compliance. The German response was immediate and vicious. Dietrich was recalled to Berlin, court-martialed for security failure. He spent the rest of the war on the Eastern Front, where incompetence carried different consequences. The junction station was shut down for 2 weeks. Every worker was investigated. 12 men were arrested on suspicion of resistance activity. 3 were executed. The Wehrmacht increased security on old transport lines, added guards, added checkpoints, made the railway system even more suffocating, even more impossible to resist. But they never understood what had actually happened. The official report classified the incident as mechanical failure due to worker incompetence during routine switch operation. A stupid mistake. A momentary lapse by a man who had performed the same task 500 times before. They never saw it for what it was. Deliberate, calculated, resistance that looked like failure. Because that was the genius of it, the simplicity. A man pulling the wrong lever looks like incompetence, and occupying forces are always willing to believe the occupied are incompetent. The 96 prisoners who escaped scattered across occupied Poland. 34 were recaptured within a week, sent to Auschwitz on a later transport. 62 survived, hidden by farmers, sheltered by resistance networks, moved through underground routes toward the east, toward the south, toward any hope of liberation. 21 of those 62 lived to see the end of the war. In 1946, during testimony at the Krakow war crimes trials, 3 survivors independently identified the date of their escape. October 17, 1943. The transport that went to the wrong line, the confusion that allowed them to run. One survivor, a woman named Elena Rosenberg, testified, "We heard German officers arguing, shouting about mistakes and incompetence, about a switch that was thrown wrong. We did not understand what it meant. We only knew that when the shooting started, some of us ran, and some of us made it to the trees." She paused. Later, we learned about the railway worker, about what he did, about the price he almost paid. The prosecutor asked, "Did you ever meet this man?" "No," Helena said, "but I named my son after him, so that someone would remember." The attack on the station was part of a larger resistance operation. The Home Army unit that extracted Jan and his family had been tracking transport schedules for months, waiting for an opportunity, an opening, a moment when the German system showed vulnerability. Jan's mistake created that moment. The chaos of the train diversion, the confusion of German officers scrambling to respond, the temporary breakdown of coordination between Wehrmacht logistics and Gestapo security. The resistance moved during that confusion, hit 3 targets simultaneously: the station, the freight depot, the transport train itself. They paid for it. 14 resistance fighters died in those operations. 23 more were arrested in the following weeks, but they proved something: that the occupation was not invincible, that even a system built on terror and efficiency could be broken by courage and timing and one man willing to pull the wrong lever. The ripples spread wider. News of the escape traveled through the underground network, whispered in cellars, encoded in radio messages, scratched on prison walls. A railway worker saved 100 prisoners by pretending to be stupid. It gave others ideas, encouraged others, inspired other acts of small resistance that looked like accidents. A station master in Lodz who forgot to lock a cattle car door. A switchman in Lublin who accidentally damaged a signal that delayed a transport by 12 hours. A maintenance worker in Warsaw who filed an incorrect repair report that sent a train to a wrong depot. Not all these acts saved lives. Some were too small. Some were discovered too quickly. But they added up. Small acts of resistance that the Germans dismissed as the incompetence of conquered people. Sometimes appearing stupid is the smartest form of resistance.
Jan Kowalski survived the war. His family was moved 7 times by the resistance in the 20 months between his escape and liberation. Different farms, different villages, different names. His daughters grew up too quickly, learned to stay silent when soldiers passed,
learned that home was wherever they could sleep safely for a night. They survived. In May 1945, when Soviet forces liberated the region, Jan returned to the junction station south of Krakow. It had been bombed during the final offensives. The signal tower was collapsed. The tracks were torn up. The office where Oberst Dietrich had tracked his perfect efficiency was a blackened shell. Jan stood on the platform where he had pulled switch 12, where he had made the choice. The mechanism was destroyed, twisted metal, but he could still see where it had been. He placed his hand on the concrete foundation, closed his eyes, thought of 96 people running into darkness, 21 who made it home, 47 who did not. Jan never spoke about what he did, not publicly, not even to most of his family. It was dangerous during the Soviet occupation to have been part of the home army resistance. Old allegiances became new crimes. Heroes became suspects. So he went back to work. Different railway, different switches, same precision. He raised his daughters. They graduated. They married. They gave him grandchildren who never knew the war. In 1963, he received a letter from Israel. It was from Helena Rosenberg, the woman who had testified at Krakow. She had spent 20 years trying to find him, to thank him. She sent a photograph. Her son, 20 years old, named Jan. "Because of you," she wrote, "I lived to have him. Because of you, my children know their grandmother's stories. Because of you, we are here." Jan kept that photograph in his wallet until the day he died. He passed away in 1977, 32 years after pulling switch 12, 70 years old, surrounded by family. At his funeral, 23 people came forward, people his daughters had never met, people with stories. A woman whose uncle had escaped the train, a man whose mother had been hidden by the same resistance network, a rabbi from Warsaw who said prayers for the 47 who did not escape, but whose suffering was made visible by those who did. They told his daughters what their father had done, what he had never told them. And his daughters wept, for the man they had known, for the hero they had lived beside without ever understanding. Helena Rosenberg attended that funeral. 74 years old, traveled from Tel Aviv. She placed a stone on Jan's grave. Jewish tradition. "Rest well," she whispered. "You pulled the right switch." Today, at the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, there is a small display about railway resistance. It mentions Jan Kowalski by name, describes the transport of October 17, 1943, lists the survivors who testified. Next to the description is a photograph of a rail switch, old mechanism, weathered metal. The caption reads, "Sometimes the difference between complicity and resistance is one deliberate mistake." The display does not receive many visitors. It is in a side corridor, easy to miss. But those who stop, those who read, those who understand, they see the truth. That in the mathematics of occupation, where every choice carried death, one man chose to risk everything for 96 people he would never meet. That in a system built on terror and obedience, the most powerful act of resistance was appearing to fail. That courage does not always look like courage. Sometimes it looks like incompetence, like a simple mistake, like pulling the wrong lever. 21 survivors, 21 people who lived because a railway worker pretended to be stupid for 90 seconds on a platform in October 1943. 21 people who had children, who had grandchildren, who are now great-grandparents to a generation that never knew the war. Hundreds of descendants living today because of one switch. That is Jan Kowalski's legacy. Not medals, not monuments. Life. If this story moved you, please hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this piece of history should not be forgotten.
We are dedicated to uncovering the hidden human stories of World War II. If you'd like to join us, subscribe and turn on notifications. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from and whether your family has its own stories from the war. Thank you for helping ensure that Jan Kowalski and the 96 souls of Transport 447 are not lost to time.